Welcome, welcome. And we are today looking at Torah Tamima, and we just started the third parsha of Genesis, and that is Lech Lecha, and of course it's the narrative about Abraham and Sarah and the tests. They write essentially what we see is how Abraham is tested by God until the final test where he's asked to take Isaac and put him on the altar. So, a couple of tests. First of all, asking Abram to move, to totally leave his homeland, his father's house, his family, and to go. That was one test. The second part of that test was he didn't tell Abram where he was taking him. He just said to a place, I'm going to show you. Uh, there are all kinds of tests involved. The third test, you could say, is that both Abraham, and this is something we were reading about in our study of Torah Tamima, was that they were barren. They had no children. And Abraham at the time, by the way, we're told in the Torah, was the tender age of 75, 75, when he was asked by God to leave his homeland. So God, and this is the passage where God is telling Abram to do this, and he is reassuring Abram, and he's Abram at this time, not Abraham. His name changes to Abraham at the end of this parsha, after he is circumcised. At any rate, he is told that he will be Va'avarcha. I will bless you, right? Second verse, he says, I'm going to make you into a great nation, etc., etc. You shall be a blessing. I will bless those, Mevarachecha, all those who bless you, Umekalelcha, and the ones, interesting, right? Mekalelcha, the one who curses you, I will curse. And the commentators point out, right, that Mevarachecha is plural, in other words, all those people who bless you. Umekalelcha is singular, and the one who curses you. So even in that is a suggested blessing. There aren't going to be too many people who curse Abram. Right? Just to finish up the verse here, right? V'nivrechu and through you will be blessed. Kol mishpachot ha'adamah, all the families of the earth. So there is a universalistic element to this particular blessing, and of course we can decide to what degree this prophecy that was mentioned so many years ago, right, in fact has come about. So at any rate, let's see if we can find the Torah Tamima. Right, here we go. Va'avarcha mevarachecha, I will bless those who bless you. Mikan, from this, Amru, they said. It's so interesting. You would never guess where we're going to go with this one. Mi shenotnin lo kos shel bracha levarech. Anyone to whom they give the cup of blessing in order to recite the blessing. So let me explain the context of what we're talking about. We're talking about, for example, a guest who's invited to someone's home for dinner, and following dinner, the tradition, of course, the halacha is that one does, if you eat bread, you do birkat hamazon, and there's a tradition of having wine if it's a Friday night, for example, but it might apply to any meal, but let's say specifically to Friday night, where you started with Kiddush over the cup of wine before the meal, and at the end of the meal, there's another cup of wine over which you recite Birkat Hamazon. We actually do this at the Seder. The Seder on Pesach, on Passover, is something where we actually have that Kos Shel Bracha following the meal. So he's been given the honor by his host to lead that blessing, right? Ve'eno mevarech. And he chooses, he says, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to lead this bracha. Mitkatzrim yamev. His life is shortened. His days are shortened. And how do we know this? Shne'emar, because it says, Va'avarcha mevarachecha. Because it says here, I will bless those who bless you. And those who bless you is understood here to mean, and Torah Tamim is going to go into this. In other words, that the person who leads the bracha after the meal, as part of that bracha, of course, blesses the Baal Habayit, the host, and his family does that as part of what they do when they lead. So understand, and this is something that is, I think, very important, that this word bracha, right? This whole word bracha is a mysterious word, right? It's a mysterious word. And there was a rabbi whose name, sadly, I cannot remember, one of the very fine commentators, who says that to understand a word in the Bible or understand a word in the Torah, you want to look at its context the very, very first time it is used. And the very first time that the word bracha is used is after God says, be fruitful and multiply. Right? So to understand the term bracha essentially means plenitude. It means lots of, because when you have lots of something, there's an essential worry that you don't possibly have to have, and that is running out. If you live in a desert and you have plenty of water, you don't have to worry about it. And so the idea is that if the world is blessed through Abraham, it will have ample, it won't have to go through scarcity on various kinds of things. But the essential meaning of bracha is to fill, to be full, to have plenty, etc. And so if we want to expand this a little bit further, you could say, well, look how we start every benediction, right, with the word Baruch. And we're saying, which is a passive form, right? And it means you are blessed, right? Be blessed, something like that, or you are blessed. Because we're saying this about God. And it would be in some ways incredible impudence, chutzpah, for us to be the ones who are blessing God. But to acknowledge that God is blessed is a way to say that the presence of God fills the world, absolutely fills all of reality, that all of reality, everything in this universe, as vast as it is, as incredibly minute as some of the smallest parts are, it is all part of, contained within the divine. And in some ways, that word Baruch incorporates that. So it's not an easy word. I said at the beginning, it's a puzzling in some ways, mystical word. It's funny because probably almost every single Jew is familiar with this word if they have the slightest knowledge of Hebrew. And yet it's a very difficult word to understand and translate. And as you can see, I'm struggling myself to try and wrap my head around this particular word. All right. So, having gone into all of that, let me take a look now at the footnote, right? This hit. And by the way, this statement is made at the tractate Brachot, right? So, again, blessed life, long life, life with ample life, plentiful life, etc. Right? So let's take a look here. And so we're looking for footnote chet, if I can find it relatively easily. Okay. So here we are, right up here. Ire, that's a Talmudic Aramaic word which means it deals with. In other words, the subject it's talking about, be'oreach, right? Regarding a guest, uval habayit, and the host. Tekesheha'arech mevarech birkat hamazon, because when the guest blesses the grace after meals, the birkat hamazon, harehu mevarech leval habayit, because he indeed, he is blessing the host. V'tzarich lomar, and we need to say, the sibat ha, let me make sure I can read this up, hasiruv hazeh, that we have to say, ask ourselves, well, why would this guest refuse, right? Refuse, siruv, misarev, to refuse. He refuses to do this. Why does he refuse to do this? she'eino ohev leval habayit, because he doesn't love or like, right? He doesn't care for the host. Ve'eino rotzeh levarcho, and he doesn't want to bless him. So that's trying to give us a better context of this somewhat puzzling statement in the Talmud. And for this reason, yitba'er ma shikasheh l'cha'ora. It explains, I think he's saying a little bit better. I'm putting those words in a set. L'cha'ora would mean appear. It would appear to explain what is puzzling, what is difficult. Menale, from where? From where did he get this idea? Demit katsrim yamav, that his days, that of this guest, should be shortened. V'hakativ rak v'avarcha mevarchecha. And it only says, I will bless those who bless you. The point he's making, okay, he's going to say it, mashma, which would assume, right? It's saying mashma, the ela, no, ela asher lo yevarchucha, right? So that implies, it says, I will bless those who bless you. Remember, it says, and I will curse those who curse you. Well, if you refuse to bless, and this is the point he's going to make, right? It implies the ela asher lo yivarchucha lo yitbarchu gam hem. It simply implies that they will not be blessed. It doesn't mean they're going to be cursed, right? So it just implies they're not going to be blessed if they don't. Aval gam lo yikulalu, right? Or lo yikulalu. It's not that they're going to be cursed. That's said later, said after it. So you don't, and this is a person who was asked to bless and didn't bless. He didn't curse, right? Ukemoshe katuv b'kiddushin, and he gives you a reference here in Tractate Kiddushin, page Samach Aleph Bet, page 61b. Imlo tetiv, right? That if it says in that context, right, if you do not do well, or something like that, if you do not do good, lo klala velo bracha. In other words, this statement, imlo tetiv, if you do not, I'm translating as best as I can, if you do not do well, or do not do good, or something like that, lo klala velo bracha, it's not a curse, and it's not a blessing. It's neutral. V'chein b'drasha hasmucha, where we're going to look at the next bracha. He says, not now, but he says in the next explanation he gives, the next quotation he's going to give, right? The drasha, his interpretation next. Kol kohen, it says, kol kohen shemavarech mitbarech, right? That any priest, any kohen who blesses the Jewish people, mitbarech, he himself is blessed. V'she'eino mevarech, but if he doesn't actively bless the Jewish people, eino mitbarech v'tula. It's simply he is not especially blessed, but nothing more. Tula means nothing else. It's a very important and common expression in halacha. V'tulo, anything more, nothing more. However, lefi ma shekatuv, right? But because what we wrote, right, or mashikatavnu, maybe, yeah, I think it's what it probably is, this abbreviation, what we wrote, the ire be'oreach, that it is dealing now with a guest, this drasha that we are working on right now, deals with a guest, she'eno ohev laval habayit, that he does not love or like even, right, the host. And that's the reason why he doesn't want to bless him. Im Kain, if that's the case, hu achzari b'shtayim. This particular person is twice cruel. He's cruel in two ways. Chada, the first way, she'ochel mishalo, he's eating what the host is providing him, right? He's taking something and consuming it. He's enjoying a meal of the host. V'gam eino rotzeh levarcho. And the second thing is not only he's taking advantage of this person, and at the same time, he doesn't want to bless him. He doesn't want to bless him. V'imkein, and if this is the case, siman hu, this is an indication, sherotzeh b'klalato, that in fact he really, even though he isn't cursing him actively, he would love to see this person, his host, to be cursed. He would love to be able to, in his heart, see this person suffer and what have you, not do well. Lachein, and for this reason, Hevei Bichlal, it becomes now we can call this particular element Umakalelcha, or I will curse the one who curses you. That's it for it. Okay. So any thoughts, any comments on this before we maybe tackle another Torah Tamima?
It's pretty remarkable how
Yeah,
he comes to that conclusion. I mean, the story is a great one. It's an example you can sort of visualize,
yes,
and how he extrapolates
I
from
know.
that back to this particular
Right.
passage.
Exactly. I'm not going to continue with this today. I think it's I've given you quite a mouthful to chew on. But the other piece is you are appreciating what makes Torah Tamima so, I want to say popular, okay? That his level of scholarship. First of all, the man has encyclopedic knowledge, all right? I mean,
That's evident.
yeah, exactly. But the other piece is his originality in terms of trying to get to the heart of the matter, right?
Mhm.
As as one of my teachers says, to get down to brass tacks. And he does this is typical of this sub-commentary that he has, right? So he does these two things. One is he finds material in rabbinic sources, not just the Talmud, but the breadth of rabbinic, and we're talking about, of course, you know, material basically from the Talmudic and earlier era, like the Midrashim, etc. But he puts the words that are very often difficult and puzzling in the sources themselves. He recasts them in a way that becomes clearer. And then on top of it, he gives this commentary, this footnote underneath where he discusses, and he sorry, I can't think of the word.
Deconstructs.
Yeah, he deconstructs exactly one of my favorite words. Deconstructs what we've just read, and really, I think sheds light in a very powerful kind of way.
Mhm.
So this is why I love it because it's challenging. It is challenging, and at the same time, it's accessible. And he just hits it right. He doesn't like if you read Tosafot in the Talmud, they are generally inaccessible. They are so intellectually advanced in terms of their reasoning and stuff like that. Trying to do it without a teacher is almost impossible.
Sure.
So difficult. But he's got the right.
It's a good level.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, I need to sign off and go
Yeah,
to
it's
lunch.
okay. I think yeah, I'm going to stop the recording here. So.
Thank you.